How is everyone today? Welcome to another stream. This time I've got wine because frankly we all need it. So I hope everyone else is doing okay. Here's the deal from my end. I am fighting off a mild migraine that I got earlier. I've had some cocodamol, we're about to have some wine, it's all going to be good. But I'm not at my best, so we're gonna have a very chilled one today. We're not going to be active, we're not going to be getting... I say this, we're not going to be getting worked up. We are probably going to get worked up. It's just the nature of these things. But we're going to try and... The world, things are bad. And we are going to get into that because there's no way I can do a stream without talking about it. Oh, that's really nice, Elizabeth. Thank you. So the plan, yeah. So we're going to talk a bit about. We're going to open the wine first, of course, and then we're gonna maybe do a bit of music. Then we're going to get into it, into the ongoing and unfolding genocide and my immense disappointment that a huge number of people on the left who should know better and don't seem to have the moral backbone of worms. And then we're gonna talk maybe a bit about the last video, which also didn't do very well. But we're gonna try and keep things light and not too depressing. And then we'll just chat about whatever. That's the plan for today. So I guess, starting off, first of all, my hair, I look like a boy band member, and that is just an effect of the swimming. I was swimming earlier, got a migraine while I was swimming, less than ideal, but we'll start with the wine, and then we'll move on. And it's a wine I've not tried. The wine today is actually kind of rosé, although it was in the white wine section. So this is something I'm not doing. The reason I went for it is because it's got a chicken and a cockerel on it, and I like chickens. Worm could be the best. Maybe it is. That defeats the point of me using it to insult people, though. I got this wine because I had chickens on the bottle, and I like chickens. And it was also 12%, and on deal down from £9 to £7, so it better be good. Let's crack it open. It's okay. Oh, okay. We're starting with the it's okay, not that it's good. Thank you, Davis. I appreciate that. I'll give it a wee sip, and then I will... Actually, no, I'll read what it says first. So, for anyone who's new to these streams, what I do is basically drink a bottle of wine and chat, and usually I read out what the wine says. This one's in French. I won't read the French, I'll read the English bit. I'll read it in my sommelier voice. Since 5 generations, Familia Perrin offers all their savoir-faire. It's a French word. I don't speak French. I'm trying to learn Spanish and German. I don't speak French. Offers all their savoir-faire, their passion and their experience in creating La Vieille Fernet wines. Faithful to our family values, these wines are authentic, tasty and balanced. For over 40 years they have been considered as one of the best value for money wines in the world. Okay, but this doesn't tell me what it tastes like. Normally it's like a lovely citrusy thing. This is just telling me the wine's good. So I don't know what I'm supposed to be tasting. Chicken? I don't know what chicken tastes like. I've never eaten chicken. The important thing is it's 12.5% per volume. Not that I encourage any unhealthy drinking habits on this channel or on this stream. it's quite nice, I'd say. I don't know. Savoir faire is kind of swagger, and yeah, I guess so. I just don't know how to pronounce it. But that's not bad. I don't know what. Let's see if I can detect any notes that I haven't been primed to detect, because it's not told me what I'm supposed to be tasting. Wine. It tastes like wine. I just don't. I'm not good at this. I can taste things in whiskey, in that I can taste when it's smoky or sweet, and sometimes other things. Wine I'm not good with. I'm not good at picking up flavours in wine, and I suspect people are always lying to me about it. What I would say, and what my mum would say, is this is very drinkable. This is a very Congratulations, chicken wine. You're very drinkable. I'm not going to use the wine's real name because they're not paying me. It's chicken wine. Chicken wine, you're alright. Yeah, so speaking of chickens, my chicken run video was my introduction to you. I mean, it's the case of so many people. That video was astronomically better than any others. I actually don't see anymore how many views it's done because it's blocked in the UK. So when I'm on YouTube and I go on my channel, I can't see the video. I can see it when I go onto like YouTube Studio and I search through my content if I actually want to check up on it. But I can't watch that video with the most views in the UK because they blocked it, which is one of the reasons why I ended up editing it and re-uploading it, which was needed because they keep blocking shit. I should have done that sooner, but fuck it. Why was it blocked? It was blocked because of copyright. There's like, it wasn't even that many. I thought it would be worse than it was. There was like 2 instances where I'd used clips for like 11 seconds instead of 10 seconds, and basically the rule is you can only use clips of a piece of media for 10 seconds before it gets caught in the copyright block. I suspect since the new Chicken Run movie is coming out that they did like a run through of like potential copyright shit up until that release. So that's why it was blocked, and it's always been blocked, and it's always been demonetized for like since it went up. I should have made sure that was better when I released it. I did not expect the video to do well when I released it. I just sort of farted it out, and then it's got like 100,000 views, and I was like, all right. Yeah. So that's what happened there. When I was in The World Transformed the other week, Left Wing Festival in the UK, many people kept coming up to me and saying, Chicken Run. I'd be like, oh, you're the Chicken Run guy. I'm like, yeah, that's me. That's me. That's my thing. There were worse reputations to have. When was it blocked? I'm in the UK and I blocked it. It was blocked in the UK just like last month. It was previously available in the UK, and it's back available now in a different version because I re-uploaded it. But yeah, it used to just be like Germany and a few other states where it was blocked, and then it sort of expanded recently. It was always demonetized though, or at least fucking Path or whoever owns the copyright got all my ad money for it, which you're fucking welcome for. Jesus, the amount of free promo I must have done that movie. It's no coincidence that the sequel was released was announced after my video, I think. I'm gonna take credit for it anyway. Hi Michelle H, thanks for popping in. You're welcome here. The left-wing white supremacy video, Trans Women Talks, is another one which is very common. I think that's up to like 90,000 views now. I think it's quite close to hitting 100,000, which is a lot of views. Which was another video. I expected that video to do well because it landed in the sort of drama shit, even though I didn't want it to be. I wanted it. I was using the drama to try and actually talk about something serious. Yeah, that's another one which has done really well. Yeah, give me fucking producer credits, Chicken Run. At least invite me to the fucking premiere, you cowards. I'm gonna buy a fucking chicken onesie for when I inevitably do the Chicken Run 2 video. Which will happen. And God, I hope it's good. I hope it's good. The prison abolition one, that's a really old one, isn't it? That's one I did about three years ago now. Yeah, I like that one. I think that was one that I was very pleased with at the time. I've not really thought about it in a while. Oh, thank you, Smooth. The Shrek one was just very fun to make. So I submitted my PhD yet? Any feedback or corrections? Not yet. I have finally. So the way it works in the UK, at least, is you submit and you get examined face to face. It's called a viva. So you pick two examiners. It's supposed to be someone from inside your institution and someone from outside your institution. Unfortunately, because my institution's weird, there wasn't anyone who was available from inside my institution to actually examine me. So both of mine are external examiners, which is potentially harder. So it took like we had about six people drop out from examining me, so it took me a long time to get examiners found. Finally found, and the PhD has been posted out to them, because it's not emailed, it's not an electronic copy. I don't know if this is something that's common throughout different institutions in the UK, because my institution is weird. Oh, thank you, Legger Domain. I appreciate that. I was very pleased with how that video turned out, and I was very disappointed with how badly it did. I'll be spamming it all over TikTok and fucking Instagram and Twitter over the next few days. What was I saying? Oh yes, so it's been posted out to the examiners, and it should get examined in December, before Christmas, I hope, because I don't want to have to deal with this over Christmas. So that's basically. I won't have any feedback until December, probably. At which point I will either get 3 months worth of corrections, 6 months worth of corrections, fail, or pass with no corrections. And the most likely scenario is 3 months of corrections. That's like 85% of all PhDs in the UK get that 3 months corrections. It'd be nice if there was none, because then I could just fucking graduate and get it done with. Someone asked what the PhD was on earlier. It's I have a video on it. The last video before the one previous, I did a video on the use of human rights in social movements, and that's one part of the PhD. More widely, it concerns how the very sort of specific ways in which social movements in the UK use human rights to resist the commodification of social reproductive goods under neoliberalism, and the impact that has on the wider neoliberal hegemony, whether it can provide any challenge to both neoliberal hegemony and the hegemony of human rights inside that. That's my best fucking elevator pitch I've ever done for that. Usually I fuck up that so badly. When people ask what's my PhD, usually I'm like, oh fucking shit, man, it's like neoliberalism and stuff. I don't know, something. I pulled that out my arse there, and that was brilliant. Jesus. I need to get better at that. Elevator pitch, fucking nonsense. When would I expect to graduate? If I get no corrections, it would be February. If I get 3 months of corrections, it wouldn't be until like November of next year, or maybe June. Because of the weird, because my, like I say, my institution is strange. It doesn't have any, undergraduates. It's only a postgraduate thing. So I'm not sure if there's any graduation ceremonies in the summer. I think they're only in, like November and February. So it might not be until November next year, just because of the schedules of it. I hope not, because that'd be a hassle. But I mean, you're sort of considered to have a PhD from the moment you're, like, if you do the exam and you get 3 months of corrections, you're basically considered to be a PhD to have a PhD at that point. You're considered a pass on the day. So if I pass on the day, I will officially be Dr. John. What uni am I in? I'm not going to say at this moment, because at another time I might, but at this moment, as we're about to launch into discussions of Palestine and genocide in Palestine, I don't necessarily want people, like, I've seen it happen, people complain to my institution, my university, about the things I say. So other institutions in London have had students suspended for attending rallies and signing petitions in favour of Palestine, in support of Palestine. So I don't want to risk that at this moment, which is, I think probably wise. I'm normally not very wise on these things. I've been warned against the things I say out loud online all the time, and its impact it might have on my career a few times. But we'll use this opportunity to be sensible. Do I plan on continuing to do videos after graduation? Yeah, I mean, the plan. My loose plan is to try and find a job as much as possible. If I find one that is full time, then obviously video content will reduce. I will probably change Patreon subscriptions to something that to only charge people once a video is released. But at this point, yeah, I've got no plans to stop. I've still got shit to talk about, still got things to say, and I like doing it. I still like making YouTube videos. I've got no plans to stop anytime soon. Wasn't I put on that Twitter watch list as well? Yeah, it wasn't a Twitter watch list. It was a blacklist by a right-wing policy think tank with connections to the government. So it was kind of a government policy think tank watch list due to my support for the Trojan Horse Affair podcast and my criticism of the media and government response to that. But that was kind of frightening. Another example of me probably shouldn't having to be more careful online. Yeah. A badge of honor. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. All right. So let's first, before we get into stuff, I'm gonna make a sort of nice tune, and then we can get into hell. Then we can descend into hell. I'm gonna make a nice relaxed tune so that we can descend into hell with some nice music. So let's get that going. some think tanks are centre right, some are centre left, I guess. assuming there that the account called Truth Over Lies was not someone that I believe would be welcome in this community. I was getting that vibe. I was getting the wee vibe that person might be a dipshit and a wanker. So they're in timeout, and the timeout lasts forever. That did sound like I ordered an assassination attempt on them. Maybe I did. Alright. That turned into something that kind of funky. I quite liked it. Alright. So we ready to talk about hell. So wine glass with no stem, yeah. Tama Scotland. I to be honest, I prefer a wine glass with stem. Okay, so as everyone is aware, and if they're not, I don't know what's going on with you. This week or last week, Palestinian fighters broke out of the open air prison of the Gaza Strip, which had been blocked in under blockade for about 15 years, 16 years maybe. And during that, several Israeli civilians, though we are going to problematize that in 1 second as well, were killed. The allegations surrounding them was an absurd amount of brutality carried out by these fighters, including some absurd stories of mass sexual assault and beheading babies. In the wake of this, Israel, which had been, and I want this to be clear, had been conducting a genocide on Palestinians for 75 years, escalated the violence on of that genocide. Some people have been saying things like, what we are seeing now is textbook genocide, and there's an extent to which that's true in the legal definition of the word, but we here don't acquiesce to legal definitions. If someone is both here in the chat and doesn't know about Palestine, please let us know, because we have to know how exactly. So the Israeli military and militarized settler force has been conducting an increasingly violent genocide on the Palestinian people, and so this is all we're all. I am assuming very well abridged of this situation, and basically the thing I want to talk about most in this, because it is going to relate to some stuff I'm going to talk about in the next video on Chad Alpha saying we've been seeing an ethnic cleansing for 75 years. That's true, but we have also been seeing a genocide, and I'll go into why that is the case in a second. But the main thing I want to talk about in relation to this is the way in which so many people, left-wing intellectuals, left-wing media figures, left-wing content creators, which I am unfortunately one of, have been almost profoundly disappointing in their lack of spine, in their willingness to repeat, uphold, and parrot back uncritically IDF and Israeli exaggerations and lies about the nature of the armed struggle and armed rebellion against their colonization and their active genocide. There's been so many people who have been actively equivocating, spending so much time condemning Hamas, which itself becomes a performative ritual to try and cleanse yourself in the face of an already hostile media, which is never going to take what you have seriously, so why fucking bother? they're not gonna treat you seriously, no matter how many times you condemn Hamas. But what that serves to do is, because if you have to condemn Hamas before every single thing you say about Israeli genocide, then you create this kind of equality between the two sides. This notion that in order to criticize Israel, we do have to both sides this. Whereas one side is fighting against colonization and genocide, and has killed civilians, which is a war crime. The other side has been conducting a genocide for 75 years. So there's no equality between those two things. And the amount of times people are desperate to be brought into the liberal media fold by overly professing a condemnation of Hamas in the face of, again, genocide. And it's just been like, if someone asked me, what I've been thinking recently is, like, if someone asked me, John, do you condemn Hamas? The only thing I can say to that is, ask me 6,000 times, and I will condemn Hamas the proportionate number of times between Israeli and Hamas deaths. And that would be once out of 6,000. Ask me 6,000 times and I will condemn them once, and with that I will condemn Israel to the thousands of times more degree, because that's all that matters in this moment. It's consistently infuriating, the performance, the dance that academics, media personalities are going through, are acquiescing to, almost seem happily to perform this kind of, I'm very morally clean in this, so then they'll take my side seriously. I look at all these times I've condemned Hamas, so you have to accept that I'm an honest actor. They won't accept that. Be real, have a backbone, have a backbone in the face of some obvious lies. Things like I saw left-wing media figures, left-wing academics repeating uncritically the notion that Hamas had decapitated 40 babies, which, to be clear, is completely unverified, a completely unverified story, and a lot of evidence coming out during the attack has seen a lot of Hamas fighters treating children that they come across in these settlements as very well, keeping them safe. I'm sure children did die because it was an active war situation, and that is sad, because children in this scenario are maybe the only innocent parties. But the notion that Hamas fighters and Palestinian liberation fighters, because they're not always the same, went round and murdered 40 babies is a classic bit of propaganda, a classic bit of colonial retribution propaganda aimed specifically to dehumanize the Palestinian people and justify the genocide. And if you are a person who has any power, a left-wing media figure, an academic, a content creator who repeated any of those lies, then you are complicit in what is happening now. And there's no getting around that. You could be like, I condemned Israel so much for everything they did. No, but you repeated those lies which were active in the dehumanization, which then justifies this. So you have become complicit. And the only way to not be complicit in that is to have some fucking backbone. And to stand up and just believe in the inherent justice and injustice of the situation. And it's like, it's fucking absurd. So I think too, it reminds me so much of Iraq and the WMDs. I mean, I was too young to really remember that, because I'm just a baby, a 29-year-old baby. But I only vaguely remember stuff like that. And incidentally, my earliest political memory is my mum taking me on the anti-Iraq war, which is also worth keeping in mind that most people's understanding of Hamas is like decades out of date. Yep. I mean, the notion of Hamas is just like a military organization, and not an organization which is one of the only authorities that can survive in the Gaza Strip and provide and organize services. Like, come on. And also there was that very good Bassem Youssef interview with Piers Morgan, where he pointed out, and he made Piers Morgan look like the silly bastard that he is. Pointed out that the West Bank, Hamas has no control there. In the West Bank, it's the Palestinian Authority, which is basically a puppet government on behalf of Israel. And in the West Bank, Israel and settlers, who we'll get to in a second, the civilian settlers, have been conducting murders, ethnic cleansings and genocide. So there's no Hamas there. There's the pretense that it's got anything to do with Hamas is obviously nonsense. It's obviously nonsense. This has nothing to do with Hamas. This has everything to do with completely destroying Palestine, Palestinians, the notion of a Palestine, and the ability of Palestine to assert itself as a unified state. That's all that this is, and that relates to a lot of people have been asking in terms of this hospital bombing, which I've been struggling a lot with, because I can't understand how it's become an issue, a contentious issue, because Israel said they were going to bomb the hospital. They then bombed the hospital, briefly took credit for bombing the hospital, deleted those tweets, then said they didn't bomb the hospital, and then released a faked video, a faked recording of fake Hamas fighters, which has been independently assessed as not credible by a number of sources. And people are still like, oh, maybe Israel didn't actually bomb it. It's like, what are you talking about? They bombed 15 hospitals. Why would they stop at the 16th? They said they were going to do it. They did it. What's going on here? People are like, oh, what purpose would Israel have in bombing hospitals? They just want to get Hamas. They don't want to get Hamas. They want to destroy the Palestinian people, and that is why they would bomb that hospital. That's why, after telling Gazans and people in Palestine that they need to run for their lives, which is what an evacuation order is. Evacuation sounds very, very clean, very tidy. What it means is run for your lives because we're going to kill you. And then, as they told them to run for their lives, they bombed them as they tried to run for their lives. Why would they do that? Well, because they want to. Because they want to kill them all. They want to eradicate them from the face of the earth, and they've been very, very clear about this. There's no question, there's no doubt about what exactly they're trying to do. They are trying to kill them all. They're trying to destroy them. And there is no nuance to that situation. There's no grey area to that situation. That's what they're wanting to do. It's what they're trying to do. And any equivocation, any notion that you need to spend time condemning the people for their options of trying to escape that fate is complicity in it. And the amount of people I have been fundamentally and entirely disappointed with knows no bounds over the past few weeks. It's been a real clarifying moment to see which people are intellectually left-wing, which people are intellectually concerned with justice, with fighting oppression, and which people actually are concerned with it. Which people are going to turn up to the protests. And this is what I was going to say when mentioning the Iraq War. It was uplifting to be in the demonstration last Saturday, because it's probably the biggest demonstration I've ever seen, and I was not expecting it. I was not expecting it to be that big. I didn't expect, like, the British. I'm gonna have to be honest. I don't expect much from the British public. I didn't expect them to turn up like that. And the official estimates are like 150,000 people turned up to London. There's no way it was as few as that. It was up at least 200,000 people, maybe more. It was gigantic. And the only time I can remember being in any comparable situation is being in the Iraq War protests that my mum brought me along to as my earliest political memory. And that was in Edinburgh, and they were obviously much smaller. But it was incredible. And what was incredible about it was incredible about it was that it wasn't just it wasn't run by, like, it was very clearly not just young people or not just older people, not just white people. It was clearly being run by Arabs and Palestinians, and it was filled with families, filled with people of all ages, which was really uplifting and incredible to see. And it made it much harder, and would make it much harder, to paint that as some sort of radical enclave of evil people, when it's like children and mothers and fathers and just walking down the streets, some of them laughing and enjoying the time and having a good time and bringing some music to it, some of them in tears, obviously, some of them overtaking statues and holding up banners, and the clear lack of power that the police had in that situation was great. It was uplifting. So that was an uplifting moment, at least. But yeah, so the next sort of points, and we won't dwell on this for too long, because everyone knows what's going on, and everyone is aware of what's happening. So I'm somewhat somewhat skeptical of protest action in this instance. Australia's capacity to intervene is minuscule, and I can't see why Israel would listen to our protests. Where am I wrong, legitimately? What it shows, first of all, is it shows Palestinian people, like, around the world and in Palestine, that there is support, that there is people, that the world is not entirely against them. And in a moment when it feels like that, I think that's important. Secondly, in terms of the UK, at least, the UK provides an incredible amount of support for Israel, including armed support, money, all that stuff. And if you can find at least some degree of mass movement action, you can pressure your governments, and we've seen some degree of concession to that, at least from the Labour Party to a small degree, in the face of those protests. A second thing is that protest action like that generates further action. So I can speak to particular networks I'm in, that since the protest there has been an uptick to some degree in people trying to plan further more disruptive actions. There's been attempts to organise local assemblies to do more direct action against arms manufacturers and against politicians directly, not violence, just to be clear, before YouTube comes at me, but direct, not lobbying, but blockading of MPs and stuff, and that sort of further generation of action is valuable. I'm very skeptical of a mass march as it is, but these things, when they are so massive, can have further effects than just the march. And it also is a way to partially cut through the propaganda, and we saw that to an extent when the BBC tried to paint the entire protest as necessarily Hamas supporters, and had to retract and apologise, because that was obviously not the case, and a great many people who were there flooded the BBC with complaints, which was good. That was nice. What else was I going to say there? Oh yes, so I've got basically 3 main points to make. The first being, protests got forbidden in Germany. What to do? I mean, protests got forbidden in France, and France still turned up. I'm not encouraging anything illegal, because that would be something that could potentially impact YouTube. But I mean, the risk of being deported is certainly something I sympathise with. I know that some people I know have been unable to go because of that fear. And you don't know until you get there. But at that protest, the police just simply could not intervene in anything, because there were just too many. But you never know about that until you get there. That's a legitimate fear. Because for anyone who doesn't know, the UK government released a statement saying that anyone caught protesting Israel would be deported if they were from a foreign country, which was something else. That's something else. So, someone mentioned earlier it was 75 years of. Hello, Megan. Thank you for joining us. It was 75 years of ethnic cleansing, and I want to be. Let's talk, sort of zoom out for a second, abstract a bit, because, and we've talked about this on the channel before. It's not just ethnic cleansing; it is genocide. It is both those things, and we've talked on this channel before about how colonialism is inherently genocidal. Patrick Wolf disagreed, but building on work from Raphael Lemkin, the person who coined the term genocide, he tied it innately to colonialism, which is why his expanded definition of genocide didn't make it into the UN, because the UK, the US, did not want to make colonialism, settler colonialism, inherently genocide, because that would be awkward for them, as you can imagine. So only the narrower sort of legal definition, which is being trotted out more these days, which still applies to what's going on in Palestine right now, it very much fits that narrow legal definition of genocide. But the settler colonial definition is one that I subscribe to. Raphael Lemkin described genocide as the destruction of a people, the imposition of a national pattern on top of that, which is exactly colonialism. And I think ethnic... Chat off, this is not a go at you, this is just sort of... it's worth going over. Worth going over what these things actually mean, and different perspectives. So ethnic cleansing happened. It's not like ethnic cleansing is not happening. Ethnic cleansing absolutely has been happening for 75 years. As Israel is predicated on ethnic cleansing, explicitly so. and that's why Gaza is so densely populated, because so many people were ethnically cleansed from other parts of Palestine into Gaza. Thank you, KV. So when people start equivocating over the liberation of Palestine, of Gaza, they are equivocating on a genocide that has been going on for 75 years. They are equivocating on people trying to escape that for 75 years. And then when people say things like "from the river to the sea" is necessarily about the destruction of, is necessarily genocidal because it talks the destruction of Israel, they are equivocating again on that ongoing genocide, because they don't just want to create the two-state solution is a complete fiction. It's not going to happen pragmatically, politically, and ethically. It would be unjust, because all of the Palestinians living in Israel right now would still be under the conditions of apartheid and genocide. So there would be no escaping that genocide. And that's an important point. And the second point I think is worth making. Someone saying vaguely binary, saying the settler colonial definition of genocide allows us to do something about genocide before it reaches the mass killing stage. Whereas accepting legal definition only lets us shake our heads after. I think that's a very prescient point to make. I think that's probably true. So the second thing I wanted to say is to speak on these civilians in terms of settlers. So a lot has been made of settlers being uncomplicatedly civilians. And in the context of an ongoing settler colonial genocide, I don't think this can be possibly upheld. Because to be a settler, and this is not like a settler in a abstracted social relation kind of way, whereby you have a particular power relation over someone. The settlers are in the illegal settlements which were raided, which were attacked, were illegal settlements of militarized destruction. The people in those buildings had been stealing homes and murdering people, burning down land actively. They were active perpetrators. They weren't civilians in a traditional sense. They were actively engaged in the destruction of Palestinian people. And the rush to frame them as uncomplicated civilians is another way in which this is obscured, another route through which Palestinians are brutalized and dehumanized as monsters attacking civilians, whereas the settlers, who have been murdering Palestinians and in the West Bank, have been actively working with the IDF, murdering civilians. It's also worth noting that all of these people over the age of 21 have been in the IDF, are essentially combatants in reserve, and have gone back to join the IDF. So the notion of them being civilians is problematic. It's not like a simple thing. So it's and like the framing of this as civilians, constant civilians. And I'm sure there were civilians who were not actively part of this, who were killed. Again, the most prescient example being children who were caught up in the militarized action. But that does not delegitimize the attacks on these militarized outposts of destruction. And a lot of people have been unwilling to stand up and make that point. They have been very quick to acquiesce again to the notion of a brutal and evil Hamas, and then just a disproportionate attack on Palestine. So rather than making it a clear that these are people who are actively engaged in destruction. Davil's saying, yeah, it's on Israel to create a distinction between combatants and civilians on several different levels. Really? Yep. I agree with that entirely. And then the last thing I want to say on this before we move on to something a bit less depressing, because we all know what's happening. We all know we're all on the same page in this space, so it's not really all that valuable for me to ramble on at it beyond a certain sense of catharsis for me. I also heard the IDF was responsible for significant friendly fire on civilians during the conflict. That has been reported by a number of sources, including a number of Israeli sources who reported that crossfire between the IOF and Hamas fighters is what killed most of the people at the music festival. The music festival, which was going on 5 miles down the road from a concentration camp. So yeah, I mean that's been several reports have heard that. And the last point I wanted to make was this inability of people to hold on to their moral, their professed morals, relates, I think, to some of the stuff I want to talk about in the future about this. I think it relates to the people that have been held up as like public intellectuals, the people that we have promoted as public intellectuals, whether that's in spaces of academia, media, or content creation as well. And the inherent risk of those people being completely unmoored from the topics in which they're supposedly they are employed to talk, employed with no expertise. You know, not how many of the people that you've heard mouth off, including myself, to be honest, about Palestine, are experts in that area? Very few. How many of them are connected to the movements? Very few. And we've seen how that disconnect from the movements that they are talking about plays out as soon as the moral complexity of it starts filtering in. Suddenly you get people completely abandoning their principles and reproducing propaganda, reproducing lines which are in the end complicit with the genocide. And that's because they are not connected to the movements that they're talking about and for. And I think this is something that we have to confront more actively let's find ways. I don't know how to do this, but find ways of confronting more accurately and more actively in left-wing spaces. Otherwise, we're all just going to end up complicit in horrors as they unfold, as wet people who are acceptable enough to the power order get hoisted up as public intellectual figures and speak for the left or for particular groups without any connection to them or any part of knowledge of them, and start failing entirely in their ability to communicate what justice means in these scenarios. And I think that's something that will be on my mind for a long time. I don't know how to fix it. I don't have any answers, but it's fucked. Hello, Sinan, you just missed my rant. And on that, we will try to move on to something a little more cheery. We'll take a wee break. We'll make some more. I'm not going to talk about that H-bomb tweet because it annoyed me, and I'm not getting into that. We'll make some more relaxing music, and then we'll get on to something a bit nicer. Underperforming videos and green growth maybe, and then whatever pops up. I really enjoyed the D&D last week, Sinan. I am very excited for the next session. I hope. Did people here watch that on SK the Crusaders Twitch channel? We started a recurring D&D session that will be every Thursday that I am not streaming. So next week we'll be doing it, and it was very fun. The vibe, the party gelled really quickly together, and it was really good. I really enjoyed it. It's fun, a fun character. My character is very fun to roleplay. What's been going on in the chat? We were talking about D&D when we left. We're still talking about D&D. Why do I lift my picking hand sometimes? I don't know. I've not noticed. Yeah, for anyone who wants to still watch the D&D thing that we did last week, it's on SK the Crusader's Twitch channel, and the VOD is still up, and it was very fun, very much worth it. Oh man! So for anyone, for the folk who haven't watched it but might, there is the sort of vibe of my character is grumpy, I guess. He's a grumpy character and was very frustrated with one of Sinan's NPCs, and I'm very excited to hate the next one that we come across. SK the Crusader. Sinan, would you mind putting that in Twitch? Because I can't. I forgot my Twitch password a long time ago, and I can't sign in. And I can't be bothered doing that right now. If Sinan can provide a link for that. Yeah, there's been a lot of people who've been tweeting out things like it's like an attempt to Sinan, like the link to your channel or something, your Twitch channel, or the VOD or whatever. Either way, I should have that, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I can't be bothered right now, and you're right there. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people who there is a tendency, which I think is like a soft version of the tendency to outright say, "Oh, this is too complicated to take a stand on." Who say like, "Oh, I don't know enough to comment," and oh, there's a mosquito in here, and I think that is cowardly. To be honest, I think if you don't know enough about the situation, you can find out, especially when it's one as serious as what's going on, as the apex of an increasingly violent genocide. I think it's not that difficult to find out enough to then tweet something like, "Hey, this is bad. Don't do this to people." That's my basic take on that. Marco Gallic, I don't know. I hadn't noticed that I was doing that. I hadn't noticed that I had lifted it sometimes. Maybe just a tick. I hadn't realised. And yeah, Sinan's right. I think the situation itself is simple enough that you can figure it out without all that too much work. I think that is not that difficult, and I get like it's easy to make bad tweets. Some people do bad tweets. It's not that big a deal. If you just be like, "Hey, this was a bad tweet. I'm sorry. I actually do have an opinion on this." It's not that difficult to figure out an opinion on this, because it's a very morally black and white situation, to be honest. Megan's saying the most fundamental bit of propaganda about this whole conflict is that it's morally complicated. I think that's right. I think that, and this is consistent with stuff that I was taught during my undergraduate degree and my postgraduate degree, frankly, which is there's a guy on TikTok, right? This is going to be a boring story. he's really annoying, and he keeps doing these videos about saying things like, from my formal training in international law and geopolitics, I can declare that this situation is too complicated to take out a moral stance on. And I was just like, get fucked. But basically I think that person is the result of what a lot of international relations and mostly international relations, to be honest, education does regarding Israel-Palestine, which is to basically equivocate on it. A lot of the time they do say, like, I remember in my postgraduate education, there was lots of critique, lots and lots of people who were very critical of Israel, but in a lot of the literature that was given out to us, a lot of it said, oh, hello Damien, that's my supervisor, and my supervisor in chat as well. I hope he's been watching me have a slight breakdown over the unfolding genocide and talking about colonialism and genocide. What was I saying before I got distracted by Damien? Yes, and a lot of my postgraduate stuff. There's a lot of like critique of Israel, but a lot of the literature on it had a very equivocating tone, where it would do things like, of course, if Palestinians had the means, they would also do these horrible things to Israelis, and it's like, yeah. Thank you, Damien. Man, it's also very complicated. I couldn't possibly stake out a moral stance on a colonial genocide. That would be too difficult for me to do. Based on what exactly? I mean, so I have a book that I'm looking at in my bookshelf right now called Crimes of War 2, because it was the sequel, the long-awaited sequel to Crimes of War 1, which makes that point a few times, and talking about it, like, obviously talks about more massacres and war crimes committed by Israel, because, spoiler, they've done more, but it does that sort of equivocating quite a few times. I don't know what it's based on. I mean, it's just a vibe, I guess. A vibe that because Palestinian liberation fighters have done war crimes, that would necessarily characterize the entire situation should Palestine achieve liberation from the river to the sea. Crimes of War 2 sounds like a game I played when I was 14. It's a really heavy book as well. You could actually kill someone with it. Not that I advocate killing anyone. Yeah, it is. I mean, this is an impact of, like, academic textbooks. They're not often good. I remember reading. I'm going to try and move away from talking about genocide for a while, because I might start having a bad time. A lot of. I remember looking back on some of my textbooks from undergraduate and postgraduate university, and like looking at their sections on neoliberalism and on Marxism, and fuck, it was just bad. It was like I can't remember the exact details, but like there was stuff in those books that was just like factually inaccurate. And I understand that you need to simplify stuff for different audiences and undergraduate audiences, but like it was just stuff that was wrong, just like straight up wrong on both those themes. And I was just reading it going, fucking hell, this is what they've been teaching us in our lefty loony universities. They've been teaching us these complete and utter fabrications about these topics. I remember that was about a couple of years ago reading that, and like just reading like Friedrich Hayek said such and such, and like going, what? No, he fucking didn't. What are you talking about? That's nonsense. Look, if I ever get caught committing grievous bodily harm of crimes of war too, at least I'll get a judge who has a sense of humour. And then get off with it. Should do a video about like poor academic communication and rubbish textbooks, I guess. An academic, like Pluggy Hero is saying, well, as an academic, a big hurdle to communicating is communicating knowledge to lay people, and I get that. I make YouTube videos, but yeah, there's a difference between simplifying stuff to where the nuances and some of the like challenges of that communication lose nuances and lose detail of the stuff you're communicating about. There's a difference between that and some of the stuff that was reading was just wrong. Oh, hello Turb, how's it going? We've got fucking all the big hitters in today. Yeah, so it wasn't. That's what I was expecting to go into reading those things, but those textbooks, and being like, okay, so obviously there's a lack of nuance, there's a lack of detail, there are perspectives which I don't share on these particular philosophies that makes sense. That's what I was expecting. But reading back, it was just wrong. It was just wrong. It was stuff that was like inaccurate, even if you were trying to explain it to a layperson and to someone who didn't necessarily have my political tendencies. And of course, Silver Samaritan, of course, we don't forget the little people on this channel. Yeah, we are here for chilling. We are absolute. This is. You've missed the emotionally hazardous stuff. So we're not talking about emotionally hazardous stuff anymore. We're just going to spend the rest of the time chilling. We might talk about the last video, which didn't do too well, and just to chat about some of the themes in the video and things that people liked or didn't like in it. I would imagine, Michelle H saying, I would imagine history and politics are far easier to put a spin on or construct narratives around. To be honest, I think what happened is less that there was necessarily a spin. I mean, there was like, you're like, if you want to get someone to talk to you about Marxism, it's not going to be a politics professor who's written a textbook, is it? Let's be honest. But with things like neoliberalism, I don't think it was about constructing a narrative. I just think that the authors of those textbooks just did not know what they were talking about. Just hadn't done research into it, hadn't put in the effort to understand it, and that makes sense because they're probably churning out textbooks and like didn't have the time to fully research, or not even fully, adequately research the things that they were talking about. I'm like to be honest, I'm more lenient on it with Marx, weirdly, because a lot of Marxists are bad on Marx. And I say that, and what I mean by that is anyone who disagrees with me on Marx is bad on Marx, to be very clear. So I'm less concerned, but like, you know, I wasn't expecting anything. A lot of Marx, like, you want Richard Wolff to describe Marxism to you? I'm like, sorry Richard, I respect you, but no thanks. But like, some basic fucking mistakes in just understanding what there were things just like I can't remember the exact. It's a couple of years since I looked, but it was some like really egregious stuff, and it was bad. Aidan Sullivan, I like that reference. I can vibe with that. John's given Ninth Doctor flipping through the magazine and scoffing. That'll never last. He's gay and she's an alien, but with geopolitics. I like that. Normally I get compared to the 10th Doctor because I'm Scottish, and anti-Scottish racism is the most pervasive form of racism. Are we all? That's a joke, to be clear. Harker, I will find you, and I will find Richard Wolff, and I will give you both a stern talking to. Pluggy Hero, I do have a Discord server, but it's only accessible to those people who are on $5 and up Patreon tiers, for the reason that I don't like Discord very much. I don't go on it very much, and I'm minimally engaged with it, and I don't want to have a big... I've heard horror stories about open Discords that devolve into real sort of bad places, and at the moment, from as much as I can tell from the times I do scroll through my current Discord, it seems to be okay. The vibe seems to be okay. And I want to sort of keep it that way, and part of that is keeping it slightly more closed. So there's a Discord, but it's only $5 and up patrons. Daniel Shepherd, are you a father? Yes, and you're more active on Discord than I am, and you're more able to do that. I find Discord overwhelming and confusing, and I don't know how. And frankly, to be honest, kind of boring. So I don't spend much time there. Discord needs a lot of moderation, which is why I couldn't make a server. Yeah, I've had one experience where I needed to basically what's the night? I can't think of any word except night. I had to knight some Discord moderators, including Tinfoil. Raccoons, absolutely welcome. Everyone loves little furry animals. And we're very pleased about that. Causes Discord, very good. That's a very good one. Yeah, we've got a few moderators and things seem to be going well in it now, so I'm glad about that. Yeah, so let's talk about the last video, because I'm gonna sit cross-legged because I feel like it. So the last one was about green growth, and it was took a slightly different approach to a lot of my normal videos, in that it started off largely being a report of one paper, and that being Jason Hickel and Vogel, who'd done an empirical analysis of decoupling rates of GDP and carbon emissions, and basically concluded that the notion of green growth is untenable. So that was like the first half was just going through this paper and basically reproducing their arguments in a more sort of accessible way, and the second half was much more polemic. That my chat's disconnected. Oh, we're back. 1 second, let me just double check everything's okay here. Oh my god, why have we got 100 viewers here? I hadn't even noticed that. That's a lot of people. I don't know what's happened. Usually we have about 30. Welcome 100 people. Hello. And so basically the second half of that was something kind of new that I don't do very much, which was given a kind of less utopian, sort of more futurist idea of what a post-scarcity economy, not post-scarcity, post-growth, rather than degrowth method would look like. And it was more like a speech than an actual video, and I was quite pleased with how that went with. And that's so I'm wondering, like, from anyone who's watched it, if there was any sort of questions or anything, who didn't video didn't do well, stream is booming, typical. Yeah, exactly. For anyone who didn't like anything that would grasp, what was it? In your opinion, what is the best method for affecting change towards carbon reduction in our current capitalist structure, minus, of course, full communist revolution across the globe? Unfortunately, and you're not going to like this, it's full communist revolution across the globe. I genuinely don't think there's a real strong way to do it within capitalist structures. I think there are severe structural barriers which prohibit that. To maintain capitalist structures requires the maintenance of increasing consumption of material goods, increasing growth, and the logics that are associated with the geopolitics of capitalism at this moment, which are imperialism and extraction. The way to affect change is, in my view, to try and build class and community power, whether that is through through building community power, through union power, or trying to build up revolutionary potential. And I was at who wants some gossip? I was at The World Transformed. Did anyone see when Keir Starmer got glitter bombed? Hot goss, yeah, I got some hot goss. Keir Starmer got glitter bombed at this year's Labour Party conference. He got glitter bombed by a guy who the problem is, Jenny, less is a 4-letter word. Less is a 4-letter word, and communism is a 9-letter word, which is more, which means that communism is actually anti-degrowth. Keir Starmer got glitter bombed at the Labour Party conference by a guy who, in that moment where the Labour Party has been awful on basically supporting Israeli genocide, supporting trans genocide, supporting attacking migrants, abandoning all of its pledges, basically being massive ghouls. And this guy glitter bombed them and then used that time to talk about a citizens' assembly. A citizens' assembly is a notion that alongside, not instead of, but alongside our current structures of political representation in the House of Commons and the House of Lords, you have a third house, which is a citizens' assembly where citizens are brought on to hold politicians to account. It is it's not real, and it's, to be honest, it's a weird thing to be suddenly obsessed with, because it's like an old idea from like the 90s, early 2000s. Like, it was big in political science, political theory, very John Rawlsian kind of stuff, which, you know, I'm not a fan of John Rawls. And so he used this moment to call for this completely weird idea of citizens' assemblies. Now, this guy was at a panel that our friend of the channel, my close personal friend Sophie from Mars, was chairing, and Sophie spent a lot of that time chairing this panel, trying to get the panelists to get on board with like direct sabotage, direct action, building class power as a means to overthrow capitalism and trying to deal with global warming. And this guy, over and over again, just kept talking about citizens' assemblies. And I was sitting in the audience just thinking, like, why is he talking about this? Why is he just talking about citizens' assemblies? And then later that day was, lo and behold, glitter bombing Keir Starmer to get citizens' assemblies. So that was the little bit of gossip. I know that Sophie was trying very hard to get them to talk about more than mild political action, mild liberal reforms in order to deal with global warming. And what was funny is that a few weeks ago, Sophie interviewed me for a video that she's putting out later about degrowth. And the video, the interview, I didn't notice I was doing this, but I somehow got like some iron grip discipline, message discipline. I was like Bernie fucking Sanders. Every question I accidentally ended on, well, of course, and the real answer is to build collective and class power. And I was just sitting there in the audience, just sort of shaking, just being like, just someone say build class power. Someone say it. But none of them did, unfortunately. But there is something. I was wanting someone to. Oh, good. I'm glad Sophie's spoken about that publicly. That means I can be less guarded. Yeah. She really didn't like that guy. Yeah, he made a joke about really liking everything Rishi Sunak had to say. And that did not go down well in the left-wing audience of The World Transformed, if I'm gonna be totally honest. It was a frustrating panel. I was sitting next to Sophie's partner, who was also just shaking in rage, just being like, somebody say something radical. And poor Sophie was trying her best, like doing so much work to try and get these people to say something radical. Dual power was specifically what was being invoked. Sophie and Nat mentioned a John in the audience with them who was getting very agitated and did wonder if it was you. It was me, yeah, that was me. If there's a John in the audience somewhere who's getting very agitated, it is often me. But that thing did get me thinking about like the ways in which unions have become sort of embroiled in part of the sort of state apparatus of maintaining capitalism, rather than being facilitators and organisers of class power, of organising the working class. And I came across in some of my research interviews as well, with people in unions, but a lot of this is not a new critique. Gramsci talks about this a lot in his critique of trade union activism. A lot of the time, trade unions end up becoming, rather than aiming to organise workers to build their collective power, they end up just sort of facilitating the labour relation. So they end up kind of like HR departments for workers, so that they can bring individualised, legalistic complaints to their employers, and those can have material benefits for the worker. But increasingly, and this is increasingly the case under neoliberalism, as these things are increasingly formalised and legalised, and the remits of trade union activism sorry, Harker, I got you there first. Are more strict. Trade unions often have become much more organs of maintaining the relationship between employer and worker, rather than building the power to overturn it. Woodland Socialist, I'll get to that in a second. I'll do another tune and then I'll get to that. I've talked about it before, but it's fun to talk about. And I saw something today which annoyed me. And it's particularly the case with bigger unions. You see a lot, particularly unions like GMB in the UK, who sweep in when other smaller unions, more radical unions like IWGB, UVW, have organised sectors like Uber drivers or Deliveroo drivers. IWGB organised these workers, and then GMB swept in, got some like sweetheart recognition agreement deal with the government, and no longer organise these workers as GMB. My dad calls them the Lords Union because they used to be run by a lord when he was young. So GMB to my dad is the Lords Union, which I think is very funny. And so they're no longer about particular things like GMB. They're no longer about actually organising those workers. They're just about saying we are the ones who represent them, bringing in more money for GMB, and maintaining the status quo of labour relations. In no sense would GMB ever organise those workers to an extent that they could be radical and powerful enough to actually challenge that fundamental relation. And I think that's on that edge, as we have lots of unions who are involved in oil and gas extraction, who are involved in damaging environmental work, who are involved in, very relevantly right now, arms manufacturing for, say, the Israeli sale to Israel. You have an inability and a lack of class consciousness to organise those workers. So the ability to actually use those unions to challenge those structures is severely undermined. And I don't have the answer to this question of how to solve this, but this is the sort of question that I think should have been discussed, and the sort of question that Sophie would have wanted to be discussed during that talk. How do we challenge these forms of melt union domination? How do we allow radical unionism to exist? How do we push radical unionism? Is that actually an effective route right now in the UK? There are some radical unions and they do some good work, but will we ever be able to challenge things like the hegemony of those particularly bigger unions? I don't know. Is it going to be the work of individual organisers eventually working within those union structures, or is it going to be undermined by more radical unions? And there's a recent sort of debate and push about whether we should get rid of the TUC, which is the sort of umbrella body of trade unions in the UK, the Trade Union Congress. And a lot of people have been saying, in order to make our unions more radical and more free and more able to undermine these issues, these bigger union structures, we need to get rid of the TUC. And I think these are valuable questions that we need to ask, that need to be discussed and that need to be worked on, not a citizens' assembly. I'll move on to Scottish independence in just one second. I hope you don't mind the comment, but when we talk about these issues, I think we talk about the one issue or solution when I think we need to do multiple ones. Yeah, of course. I would never want to imply that there is one solution beyond global communism that we need to deal with. These are difficult issues that have difficult questions and difficult answers, and are only ever really understood or really solved through the sort of action of solving them. I don't think this is something that can be solved intellectually. I think this is something which would be solved and can only be solved as more radical union organisers, more radical union actors find ways to do it, to be honest. I don't think there's a theoretical way to do this. Theory and praxis, it's almost as if they exist in dialectical tension, eh? Oh, Woodland Socialist, you missed it. I'll catch you on the replay. Okay, I'll talk about it in a second. But yeah, let's change this tune up. Let's get something a bit more disco. I cannot talk about UCU right now, or else we will be here all night. No, I can't do it. We're ready for some Scottish independence chat. I'm sure everyone here has probably heard my rant about Scottish independence before. But for the benefit of those who have not, and for those who want to watch it on playback, another song by John that sounds like it's from a Sonic level. Sega, make a new Sonic game and hire me to do it, to do the music for it. I will do it for a very reasonable price. For a very reasonable price of what's the normal price to do a soundtrack? £3,000. Harker, wait until I've got another glass of wine in me, then maybe. Don't do it for a reasonable price. Yes, sorry, I will do it for... No, I mean, I won't do it for a reasonable price. I'm saying to Sega that I will do it for a reasonable price, but really I will do it for an extortionate price, and then unionise their contributors. So for folks who don't know, my view on Scottish independence is that it is, in the most literal sense, and to be on brand here, bourgeois politics. In the sense that, and this isn't necessarily the idea that I'm against it. I frankly don't give a shit at this point. I don't think it matters. I don't think it really has any proper impact on any radical politics in the world. In the UK right now, what it is a way to funnel discontent, funnel political action into a very, very narrow framework of bourgeois politics. What does Scottish independence represent? Well, it represents the switching from one distant neoliberal state to another distant neoliberal state. Would you like a slightly left or neoliberal capitalist state? Yes, you're exactly right, Violet. The Edge Bomber guy thing was literally just that I thought that his post about not wanting to say anything because he didn't know anything was kind of lame. Basically, that was it. There's not much tea there. It was just like, I was just like, oh, that's a shame. I expected better from you. Sometimes it's okay sometimes it's easy to say something, and sometimes when it's hard to say something and easier not to say something, you could consider why that is and then fucking say something. But yeah, returning to Scottish independence. So on the political side, I frankly don't think it would do much. We have it would result in probably like a neoliberal state which is embedded with neoliberalism, which is maybe slightly more social democratic than England, which I think the biggest benefit that can come from Scottish independence would be allowing the Scottish left to talk about fucking anything else, to try and organise on anything else instead of independence, and they've been better on that recently. But up until I guess maybe about 2020, a lot of it was like a lot of left-wing politics was just entirely subsumed within the independence movement. All energy was just being pushed towards this independence movement, which is not going to do anything. You're not gonna get communism from independence. It's not even necessarily going to be easier to do that from Scotland, from a Scottish left, as it would be from in Westminster. In some ways, the Scottish Parliament is more centralised and more distant than Westminster is, perversely. And the SNP are incredibly embedded within the state structures, to such an extent. I had a friend who worked for the civil service who would tell me that any time they had a request for freedom of information from the SNP, they had to get it immediately, or else people who existed within the civil service who had been embedded there for a long time and were very happy with the SNP would just destroy and shred documents. I'm sure that's true of any for any state, any political actor that has been embedded within the state for a long time. I don't think that's unique to the SNP, to be honest. It's not. So I think that would be a more that's the one probably desirable result of independence. The one actual material desirable result is that might allow the Scottish left to actually fucking do something, to actually get organised around things that aren't just independence. To maybe confront the fact that we are an imperial nation, that has benefited and continues to benefit from global imperialism. We are not some left-wing enclave of a. This is what I saw today was someone saying that Scotland was colonised by England. Not true and offensive. Not to me, I'm not offended, but to any colonised nation, including Ireland, who Scotland directly colonised. The Ulster Scots are called such because Scottish people went to Ulster and colonised it. We are still embroiled and absolutely to blame for imperialism to an equal extent as the English, but we still get away with it. I know there's been a recent change in the historical sort of. I've seen a few Scottish historians talking about how the change in attitude towards this view of Scotland as being colonised has been at the push of Scottish historians, which is true, but I don't think it has all that much relevance to the question. I mean, of course it would be. Of course that would be the case. Pancaking on. Have you seen people compare Wales to Gaza? That is not good. I have not seen that, and yeah, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah, so there are that's the one benefit of Scotland becoming independent. Do something else. The negatives, which are very much possible, are firstly complacency. The notion that complacency and defensiveness. The notion that if we go independent, then we have something to prove. We've got to be defensive. We've got to always be on the side of the new nation. So the left starts failing, starts not challenging the status quo, the neoliberal state, the neoliberal governance, the SNP, whatever. The second issue is that with an independence movement like Scotland, which it's always claimed to be cosmopolitan, to be about civic nationalism, and then it has cited the US as this sort of civic nationalism. Rather than any racist thing, they bizarrely cite the US as like, oh, the US is civic nationalism, and we're not doing it in a racist way. And you're like, why are you citing the US then? What are you doing? And I have seen this already, but the independence movement has been involved in and contributed to white nationalism. I don't think it's been totally widespread at this moment, but I've seen and I've spoken to black and brown comrades in Scotland who have reported this to me, that and like the people in the independence movement, they themselves have been independence supporters, but the independence movement has been hugely racist, and it's not surprising that an independence movement would be hugely racist in an imperial nation, and it's just because I think that it's been masked slightly, because the unionist side is definitely racist, because it's filled with Rangers supporters and people who love the British state who are definitely racist. But that doesn't mean that the nationalist side is not also definitely racist. And I worry that in an independent Scotland, if things go wrong and there is not a Westminster to blame, then suddenly these racist currents which exist at the moment will leap to the forefront, and that is a significant worry of mine. I don't think that it is a nail in the coffin in terms of whether or not we should do independence. Again, I don't actually care either way whether that happens. I don't think it is a question that we should necessarily be occupying ourselves with, because nothing will change fundamentally, except the main thing that is in that I could support independence for is that it would be funny to watch the Tories and the fucking Unionists, more than Tories, Labour parties as well, disintegrate as the British Islands disintegrates into its constituent nations. That would be funny. I'm not sure that it would be funny as a good guide to whether or not it is something I should politically support. It would definitely be funny. But yeah, the main worry of it is the potential, the real potential, and the real worry of it bringing to the fore the real and violent racism that exists in Scotland. And a lot of Scottish people try to ignore this because they try to think that Scotland is inherently more left-wing than England, when that's not true on any metric. Not true. In some ways we are more racist in terms of, like, if you look at social attitude surveys, we often have worse opinions of immigrants and we have more racist opinions. Part of that is because we have a much smaller ethnic minority population. A lot more of us are fucking racist, or many of us are fucking racist, and yeah, that worries me significantly. If there was a referendum tomorrow, I probably wouldn't be allowed to vote because I live in England. But I even if I could, I don't know how I would vote. Probably for. I might not even vote for it or vote in it because I just don't think it matters all that much. Regardless, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I don't think there is going to be an opportunity for a Scottish independence referendum anytime soon. I don't actually think there's much of the appetite for it is that strong anymore. I think that it was for a period and then it has dropped off a bit, and I think that worries people in the SNP. Like, if they lose again, that's embarrassing for them. And the movement has taken big hits recently with the police investigation against Nicola Sturgeon and her husband, and the finances of the SNP. Alex Salmond being a fucking piece of shit didn't help them, and like more important things going on. So yeah, I think that's my opinions on Scottish independence, basically. To people who support independence, like who it's their thing, for whom it's their thing, I would say go for it, but get some real politics. Start caring about some stuff that matters, stuff that's actually important, stuff that will make the world different and better. Because building your politics off of a fragile national identity in the imperial core is not gonna do it. You're not gonna build the revolution through that. You're gonna build a new neoliberal state, probably with some neoliberal contingencies within its constitution as well, given the moment in which we live and the political character of the ruling party, which will steer it. But yeah, I remember being at when I was about 24. I did work for an NGO, and it was quite an insider NGO. And through that work, I was invited to some state government-funded, like, think tank, like focus group style events. And I remember being in those events as people would say, like, would promote this idea that Scotland is inherently more left-wing, more progressive. And it took a lot of pushback to be like, we have no evidence to support this claim. The claim itself covers up the fact that we are racist and is a way of diverting attention and for us not to deal with our racism. By saying, oh, we're not as bad as England, we are as bad as England, but by saying we're not as bad as England, we can still pat ourselves on the back. And like being in these groups with people who had much more power than me, or anyone I'd ever met, who were government state officials, it became really clear to me just how fragile the independence movement really is, and how open to racism it is, and it would be. That's I have bad news. I have bad news for Scotland. It is English. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, the main benefit is that we sound better, and that's just like a main thing. Like, we generally just sound better. Like, you do just want to listen to this more than you want to be like, oh, hello, my name is Englishman, and I like to talk about English things. You don't want to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear an English person talk. But we sound better. That's the main thing. And if there's an argument for independence, I'd be like, hey, Scotland, we kind of sound better, don't we? That's my take. Aidan Sullivan saying, I think some of what's going on with Scottish independence is finding a way to challenge the UK without ever challenging the apparatus of the state, so it's a bit annoying because it's halfway to a census. Yeah, I get that. I think that is true. Yeah, that's my impression of all you English people. I think that is true, though, that it does provide a way to present a movement as radicalism without ever challenging anything. So it's like a safe radicalism, like doing something like, we are fundamentally challenging the makeup of the British state. We are challenging a 300-year arrangement. So it's necessarily radical, and we're doing it from a left wing, and it is the case that people who support independence tend to be more left wing. That is a true thing. What that argument, a lot of people who say, independence will be left wing because a lot of people who support independence are left wing, that argument misses that should independence win, that includes all the people who aren't left wing, who are still going to be in Scotland. But it does allow a sort of presentation of radicalism without the actual meat of being radical. And with that, it comes a failure of politics. Megan's asking, is there a Discord for John's channel? There's a Discord, but only for people who are $5 and up patrons. As I was saying earlier, it's more of a manageability thing for me than anything else, and I worry about things getting out of hand. That is like all bourgeois national projects, yeah. I mean, it's a bourgeois national project. It's not a national liberation project because no one is oppressing us. We're not trying to get free from colonialism. It's not comparable to any national liberation project which eventually became bourgeois, even though it was a national liberation project. So I don't know how many bourgeois national projects there are which aren't colonial. I guess the US would be one, or in Canada and Australia, those ones. And then they just sort of continued their own horrendous politics of their own. Alright. Let's get another tune going and then put questions in the chat. If I miss them, tag me. I'm going to put another tune on because this one's annoying me now. for doing video game music. Worst things to do. I do listen to video game music while I'm writing or anything, but that's mainly Zelda theme music. I do like this though. See you later, Damien. Thanks for popping in. Always weird that you can see me like this. What audio interface? I have an outboard amp called a Behringer outboard amp, and it's just through OBS that this whole thing is recorded through. Sinan, I appreciate that, and I will do it for you. I guess there's just something like there's something in like the cheesiness of it that is easy to do and fun. All right, is there anything else? Any other burning questions or topics or anything that anyone wants to chat about while we vibe out to this tune? We've covered what I wanted to cover tonight. But open to anything else anyone wants to chat about. Have I seen anything recently that is worth talking about? I cried. I watched some of the new series of Our Flag Means Death, the gay pirate show. Already made me cry. There's a fucking mosquito in here, man. Oh my god, the UCU. Okay, yeah, Harker. Yeah, okay, yeah, we're gonna talk about UCU. Okay. So the UCU is trash. Why is Doc my honestly, I do love Doc. Like, Sinan, you're joking. I do love that character, and I enjoyed very much interacting with him. We want you for at least another half hour. Yeah, I think another half hour is good. Oh yeah, I'll get to UCU, then I'll get to the other stuff, and the gay pirate show. Yeah, so basically the UCU's the problem with the UCU is that it is led by and made up, and lots of the people who make it up are the more comfortable members of academia. So recently we won a dispute about pensions. This is in the UK there are two, sorry, let me rephrase that. In England and Wales there are two streams of universities, post-92 and pre-92. Pre-92 institutions are those which were universities before 1992, before an Education Act came in and a whole bunch of different previously colleges, previously polytechnics, became universities, and those are known as post-92s, and they exist in a different sort of legal state to pre-92. The UCU, Plucky Hero, is the University and Colleges Union, is the union that I am part of, which I probably shouldn't be bad-mouthing in public, but if there's one thing people in the UCU love to do, it's bad-mouth the UCU in public. And one of the big things that was motivating a lot of strikes over the past 5 years was a change in the pensions program for those pre-92 institutions, and it was really bad, and it was an awful change to the pensions, and we recently won some concessions through that dispute, and the UCU gave a big was very pleased with itself, because it had been a long-standing dispute, and we're now currently balloting for further strike action, because pensions are not the main thing. They're important, but they're not the main thing that's really affecting higher education at the moment. The main things that are affecting higher education at the moment in the UK is neoliberalisation, the commodifying, marketising of the university further to what it was already, and the stripping of universities of those degrees which are deemed non-useful. These are often history degrees and humanities degrees. So we've seen in the UK a closure of, I think in 2021 there was like 9 history departments across England that were just deleted from university books, including Liverpool University, big universities. These were not small universities which didn't have the funds. These were big universities that just deleted history departments. Birkbeck University, which is part of the University of London, got rid of its English department. Roehampton, another one in the University of London conglomerate. University of London is kind of like Cambridge and Oxford in that it's like an overarching thing that has lots of different colleges. Roehampton fired half of its staff, including the entirety of its philosophy department, before rehiring on casualised contracts. These are often the biggest issues that particularly early career researchers who are much more are UK universities like US ones where they give tons of money to sports? Not really, no. We've not got much of a sports program in that sense. It's a sort of different arrangement. A lot of money comes from and goes to industry. So the reason that STEM does well, I think, and I think this is slightly different from some people's perception. I mean, I think the government and the state value STEM as useful. But I think the reason it's safer is more because it gets a lot of funding from industry. A lot of industry embroilment with STEM subjects, which is bad in its own terms, or at least is not properly engaged with as an area of concern. Because obviously, if education is fully embroiled with the industry, then you're going to get education which is entirely subsumed by the profit motives of those industries. So that's where a lot of the money both goes and comes from, and it's why a lot of humanities departments get closed, because industry doesn't there isn't an English industry really. There's publishing, but the publishing doesn't have the kind of money that like multinational pharmaceutical companies have. Not really. So there's not as much sort of funding or money going in and out of those areas. So that's a big problem. But we have a big problem in universities in the UK and in England especially, of massive casualisation of staff, not just academic staff, and this often gets sidelined entirely by the UCU, because it's not just academic staff who make up the UCU, it's administrative and like facilities staff as well, so like cleaning, people who work in kitchens, all that stuff are eligible to work for the UCU. I am a member, I am a non-voting member because of my PhD. I have voting rights because I work for the university in a sort of quasi-administrative capacity. That's the sort of bizarre world of the job I have, which is not. We have adjunct professors living out of our cars. We don't really have adjunct professors. What we have. So we're gonna get into how bad my job hunt's going, and then so a lot of jobs now, and I'm not sure what adjunct necessarily means in the US context. A professor in the UK is a high-ranking job at the university, highly paid. It's not just someone who teaches. What we have is a lot of people who are on low-level teaching contracts, which last a term, which is like maybe 10 weeks. And I've seen these jobs advertised. Non-tenure. It's a slightly different system, so that we don't really have tenure either. It's not really a thing that exists. It used to, but it got abolished. We have, so what you tend to have, the job structure, and it's more to simplify it. In UK universities, you have PhDs who often have teaching responsibilities. Then you would have sometimes like a research fellow or a junior lecturer, and a junior lecturer would be one of the earliest jobs. And then you get a senior lecturer and then a professor. Those are basically the four categories. An adjunct professor is a casualised instructor paid on a piecework basis. So that's what a lot of stuff is happening right now. Is no longer are those four categories the only thing that exists. What we're getting is lecturership jobs advertised for. A recent one I saw was a lecturership in Bath, which is a town about a couple of hours outside London, which was for £60 an hour per contact hour. It did not have hours that you would be worked specified, so you were expected to apply for this job without knowing if you would be working 1 hour a week or 20. So you would have no idea how much money this was. £60 per contact hour. That does not include prep time. That does not include things that you do over your work. It does not include publishing. It does not include book contracts. It does not include a whole host of other things that are necessary to maintain a career in academia, conferences, for example. And it was only for a term in Bath. So what you would be expected to do is relocate, move to Bath for 10 weeks with no knowledge of how many hours a week you would be working, and then have no knowledge of whether you would have any job after that, whether you'd have to move back to wherever you came first, whether that was London, whether that was further afield, and have no option of what to do. But they were expecting people to do this, and this has happened to these are jobs that I'm seeing in a number of different places. As I am in my job hunt, casualised employment to cover up the fact that they have fired half of their full-time contract employment staff. This is what's going on, and these are some of the biggest issues of Megan. I fucking appreciate that a lot. I like the coup. These are the sort of issues that are really concerning for the most precarious members of the academic world. And I'm not even the most precarious, because a lot of the most precarious members of the academic world in the UK are people who need jobs to continue with their visas, who maybe have partners or families in this country, but can't find a job that's not casualised, and so they are incredibly precarious. And one of the major problems with the UCU is an inability to first of all include academic support and administrative support and facility staff in their broader organising. My institution is different. My branch is better for this because it's a weird institution. Most of the UCU in my branch is made up of administrative facilities and support staff. So we actually tend to be more radical because of that. Turns out class positions actually impact your politics. But a lot of branches aren't like that, and a lot of and there are a few reasons for that. First is the UCU is just bad for engaging with those staff. Second reason is that there are other unions which will include those staff. Unite is one of them. And so there's competition between the unions, and that breeds difficulties. That links into some of the stuff we were talking earlier about the union movement. But we're not even into the main problems with UCU yet. Because the UCU is run at the moment almost like a social media account. There have been a number of issues recently whereby, so one example, there was a vote put on Twitter about whether or not the UCU should, I can't remember the exact details, it was whether or not the UCU should engage in a particular form of action. This was not done through democratic channels that a union legally and just fucking morally has to go through. And because of the results of this Twitter poll, which were run by the General Secretary because of her power as a social media figure, went in her favour, and that resulted in the leadership taking a position which was not backed up by a democratic mandate, or at least not visibly so, and that obviously led to a lot of consternation amongst the UCU members. Elizabeth, I appreciate that so much. That's literally all I want to do is I just want a teaching job at a university. That's all I want. So that was fucked. A second example was recently. This one was really fucked. The UCU in Newcastle accidentally sent the wrong ballot information to their employer, Newcastle University, basically saying that they weren't going to strike. That was incorrect. They sent the wrong thing, and they tried to contact Newcastle University and say, "Oh, actually, this was the wrong information. Are you going to be cool with this and let us strike in the university?" Because their employers said, "No, we're going to take your initial reaction." Because obviously they would, because they're employers. They're not going to... They're scum. They're not going to be nice to you. And this is I don't know if I'm communicating enough how much of a big fucking deal that is, but the management of the union fucking up a strike ballot to that extent is beyond fucked. It is a complete dereliction of their duty, and should have led to heads rolling from that action. It was completely fucked. It was outrageously bad. And following that, there was another instance where a member of the faction of this union, of the leader's faction, and to be fair, the leader did call out and did say this was not on, but this is not an entire. Was it a legit fuck up or sabotage? I mean, I'm inclined to just believe it was a fuck up. I don't think that they're that organised to do a sabotage. So this isn't just about the leader. I think like I have my problems with Joe Grady, but to her credit, she came out and fully disowned this and said it was terrible. A group or a group of people went to the right-wing newspapers from Joe Grady's faction of the UCU and basically confessed to them that any criticism of the union was necessarily a result of misogyny, which is such a incredibly fucked up way to approach internal union disagreements. It was the
Times newspaper, to approach a right-wing, I would say far-right newspaper, and try to smear your factional opponents in that way is just fucked. Argon Jones, I worked at Newcastle Uni, and yeah, the local UCU just kind of went, sorry. Yeah. So these are like the three most recent examples of how the UCU has been bad, how it is fucked up, how it has been a difficult place to organise. And it's all wrapped around this sort of wider theme that the way to that has characterised the direct action that's been taken, which has been very staggered, short periods of strike action, which have never gone on long enough to fully disrupt or fully challenge the universities. It's mostly just annoyed both members and students, and you know, it worked enough to win the pensions thing, but not enough to win anything more. And it kind of feels like a bit like a crumb that's been thrown to us, because these are the pensions thing was one dispute amongst a whole others, like a whole load of other disputes that weren't addressed properly. And I think part of the problem is that a lot of the staff and a lot of the people that are powerful in the UCU are more comfortable in their class position, unfortunately, and that leads to a lack of radicalism. And it's one of my no one's going to watch this. One of my goals once I get a job is to become more involved in wherever I get a job, in the UCU of wherever I get a job, and try to radicalise it. To try and push the UCU to do more, to challenge the pervasive marketisation of the industry, to go beyond individual disputes of pensions, to include the administrative and support and facilities staff that have been so often excluded, and to radicalise those people as well. Because the industry is crumbling. Academia in the UK is crumbling. It is absolutely on its knees. It is reaching the point where the only way to survive there is to be independently wealthy, and we need to do more as a union to combat that, and it's just not happening. So Harker, are you happy? That's my 25 minutes on the UCU. Is the wine good? The wine is quite good, I have to say. This wine is very drinkable. It's chicken wine. I don't know. I'm not looking at the name because I don't want to promote the company, because they annoy me. But it's got chickens on the label, and it is nice. Thank you, Elizabeth. That's very kind. Now, someone asked me about the Gay Pirate Show. Not got long left, but let's talk about the Gay Pirate Show briefly. If you've not seen Our Flag Means Death, it is great. It is a great show. It is maybe the best sort of acting performance that Taika Waititi has ever done. Chickens, like the hit communist master-based chicken run, exactly like that. Are these tunes pre-improvised or pre-written? It's all improvised. That's why they often sound the same. Yeah. I don't know what it's on, Sinan. And we've been pirating it because it's a pirate show. It's like Hulu or something. I don't know. But it's basically about you know Murray from Flight of the Conchords. He plays as a sort of gentleman. The first series is he plays like this gentleman, a gentleman of privilege who wants to become a pirate, and he comes across Blackbeard, played by Taika Waititi. Thank you for coming by, Pluggy Hero. Chris Hutchinson's. It is exactly that. You are exactly right. It is that. Well done. Jethro Jangles, we pirate it. He plays a gentleman pirate who's very privileged, and he meets Blackbeard, and it's basically the story of him and Blackbeard falling in love. And it's just like when people last year when people started describing it to me as a gay pirate show, I was like, okay, so it's like I didn't expect it to be as overtly gay. It is so gay. Every character is like queer, is gay, is like non-binary. It's the gayest fucking show. The second series is on like the 5th episode right now, and there's a scene where one of them is a mermaid, and it's like a fantasy, and it made me cry. It just did. I don't know. There's nothing else I can say about that. It made me cry. And I think one of the most impressive things about it is Taika Waititi's performance, because you're so used to Taika Waititi being a cartoon character, a complete farce of himself, which is like he does a bit of that in this, but like you can see in the show that he's actually like acting, and you're like, oh fuck, you can actually act. You're doing an acting. And it's making me feel emotional, and it's great. One of the recent episodes had Minnie Driver as a bisexual pirate in a tempestuous relationship with another woman that was wonderful. That was just great. Everything about it was like, yep, this is good. It's got Spud from Train Spotting in it, who every moment that Spud from Train Spotting, like Ewan Bremner, is on screen, you're just like, fucking, this is great. He's great. It's so good. That's the thing that I'm most excited to keep watching. I think the new series of Interview with a Vampire is out, talking about gay fucking shows. I'll be excited to watch that when it comes out as well. But yeah, it's a fucking brilliant show. So that's us reached 11 o'clock. We've talked about gay pirates and we've talked about the UCU, the two genders. So I think we will start to draw this to a close. Thanks for coming by, and I hope you all enjoyed the stream. The first half was a bit depressing, but we needed to talk about it. Interview with the Vampire. The series is so good. I enjoyed it so much. But I can't talk about that right now because I'm about to draw the stream to a close. I hope you all enjoyed the stream, and I will see you all in 2 weeks. Remember, next week we have D&D at SK the Crusader on Twitch, and if you've not watched the new video, the last video, please watch it. If you have watched it, please share it. We'll see you next time.